The propaganda puppets gather at the Prostitute Gala, otherwise known as the White House Correspondents' Dinner, to pat each other on the back while continuing to put out articles discouraging gathering and encouraging masking up. Fascist Fauci said he wouldn't attend because the pandemic wasn't over, but that didn't stop him from rubbing shoulders at pre-parties. The correspondent said even the president himself took the time to laugh at your struggles.
I think ever since you've come into office, things are really looking up. Gas is up, rent is up, food is up, everything. No, it really has been a tough first year for you, Mr. President.
Bringing you what's ignored, sensationalized, unbalanced, misleading, or just plain false, here's your media malfeasance for the first week of May. The Supreme Court leak dominates the news this week, but the focus became women's rights rather than the unprecedented leak of a draft opinion. SCOTUS blog tweets, "It's impossible to overstate the earthquake this will cause inside the court in terms of the destruction of trust among the justices and staff. This leak is the gravest, most unforgivable sin." So who will be responsible for this leak, this stolen document? Will the Politico reporter be treated like James O'Keefe was? Reminder, Project Veritas was given the Ashley Biden diary. They turned it over to police, and then James O'Keefe was raided by the FBI and spied on. Politico publishes a stolen draft from the Supreme Court that is being used to intimidate the highest court before a decision is made. And nothing. James O'Keefe. Yesterday, Politico's Josh Gearstein received a stolen copy of a draft U.S. Supreme Court opinion overturning Roe v. Wade and published it. And yet he sleeps well in his own bed tonight with no fear of being roused at 6 a.m. by short, loud, thuggish FBI agents as I was and handcuffed. Is this equal justice under the law? Except in this case, it would appear Politico actually is an accomplice to violating Title 18, Section 2071 of the United States Code. Also missing from the mainstream, Joe Biden's evolving position on the matter. From Gateway Pundit, Joe Biden entered the Senate in 1973, the same year the Supreme Court legalized abortion in its Roe v. Wade decision. 1974, a year after Roe v. Wade was decided, he said the ruling had gone too far and that a woman seeking an abortion should not have the sole right to say what should happen to her body. 1982, he votes for a constitutional amendment allowing states to overturn Roe v. Wade. But now he suddenly cares so much about women's rights that he didn't even bother to condemn such an egregious leak that threatens the integrity and safety of the Supreme Court. And oh wait, Barack Obama's position has flip-flopped as well. Obama in 2008, "The first thing I'll do as president is sign the Freedom of Choice Act." But in an April 2009 speech, President Obama said the bill was not his highest legislative priority. Nancy Pelosi is mixed up as well. In 2017, she says she welcomes any anti-abortion Dems to the party. Now she says the Republican assault on Roe v. Wade is a manifestation of their decades-long disrespect of women. Did she just alienate and insult all the men that can get pregnant? Elizabeth Warren is awfully worked up.
Angling for decades now, and we are going to fight back.
Did she just call for an insurrection?
I am angry. Angry and upset? Angry and upset and determined.
Has anyone told her that if Roe v. Wade is struck down, it won't have any bearing on her home state of Massachusetts, since this would only put power back in the hands of the states? Has legacy media made that point clear to you? And just for some context, this baby was born at just 23 weeks and will now get to enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as outlined in the Declaration of Independence. Because if we don't have equal rights for even the most innocent and defenseless, what kind of country are we? Meanwhile, legacy media continues to write smear pieces about anyone not on the side of its clear bias. New York Times. Elon Musk grew up in elite white communities in South Africa, detached from apartheid's atrocities and surrounded by anti-black propaganda. Yet if you actually read the entire article, it paints a much different anti-apartheid Musk who defended his black classmates. And never mind any mistakes made, New York Times again just edits retractions. They're so passé. How does the New York Times really feel about free speech? I can't tell with its buzzwords like unfettered conversations or dangers of unchecked speech. What about the dangers of checked speech? You couldn't say anything about the jabs except safe and effective. Now media is forced to report FDA is restricting J&J's COVID-19 vaccine due to blood clot risk. FDA officials said in a statement that they decided to restrict J&J's vaccine after taking another look at data. Oh, now they take another look at the data. Interesting. What about those of us who have been looking at the data, yet weren't allowed to share it? Speaking of restrictions on sharing information, our current federal administration really wants to ram through its Orwellian Disinformation Governance Board. This isn't a Democrat versus Republican issue. Both have been guilty of disinformation. We don't need government to protect speech. Free speech helps protect us from our government.
Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government. Are you familiar with McNamara, the Pentagon Papers? Are you familiar with George W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction? Are you familiar with Iran-Contra? I mean, think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country. We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want you guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech. You think we can't determine, speech by traffickers is disinformation? You think the American people are so stupid they need you to tell them what the truth is? You can't even admit what the truth is with the Steele dossier. I don't trust government to figure out what the truth is. Government is largely disseminating disinformation.
For KLIM.News, I'm Christy Lee.